What's up, guys? Welcome to Movie Emporium. If you like what you see, of course, hit the subscribe button, join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next, and of course, comment below on any video that you're watching my channel. We made it to the end of 2019, folks. This has been a very interesting year. When this year started out, I'm like, this is not going to be very good. There's not a lot of great movies coming out. But I was talking to a few YouTubers that I usually talk to on a regular basis, and I'm like, I was looking through the last half of 2019, and I'm like, oh my god, this year is going to be insane. And I'll tell you what, that's exactly what this year was. 2019 as a whole was one of the best years of the decade or of the last, 20 years. It seems like every time there's a 19 or a 9 in the year, it turns out to be a fantastic year, or every 20 years, kind of like it just happens to be a great year for movies, and it's makes it so hard to make a top 10 list that it just becomes almost impossible to put every film that I really enjoyed in this top 10, because there's so many good films. You guys are going to be shocked and probably upset with my honorable mentions, but it is what it is. But my top 10 is eclectic, it's interesting, and it doesn't include any big budget movies, which is really funny. But we'll do 5 honorable mentions, and those honorable mentions are Honey Boy, the Shia LaBeouf movie. The next one is Ford vs Ferrari, the James Mangold movie. The next one is A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the Tom Hanks movie. The next one is the one I just saw recently, Marriage Story. Fantastic film with Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver. And this is the one that I know a lot of people will disagree with, Avengers Endgame. It's in my honorable mention. It's a great film, but just couldn't crack my top 10 because of how insane this year was. But I understand if it is in your top 10. So those are honorable mentions. Definitely see them if you get a chance, if you haven't seen any of those movies, which I know most of you have. And with that, let's go ahead and hit into number 10 of my top 10 of the year. And number 10 is... So how do you get over something like Star Wars The Last Jedi, the divisiveness of it? You create a whodunit, fun comedy, drama, whatever you want to call it, with Knives Out, and that's exactly what Rian Johnson did. He, with this film, he created a very fun, very outlandish tale of this family whose father has been murdered, or think he's murdered, and they're there to inherit his wealth, and there's a lot of mystery behind it, there's a lot of craziness behind it, but it has some great characters in it. We have Ana de Armas, we have Daniel Craig, we have Jamie Lee Curtis, Don Johnson, Chris Evans. The list goes on, and the eventual reveal makes this movie just fantastic and just a fun time at the theaters. And that's all I want out of it. Movies like this. Look at the Murder on the Orient Express. It's a great movie, and it's definitely recommended. That's why it's in my top 10, because it's just a good time at the theater. So there you go. With number 9, we have... So Taika Waititi directed Jojo Rabbit, and this movie was a very controversial movie when it was talked about, and there's a reason for that. Taika Waititi's playing Hitler, but this movie's fantastic. Like I said in my review, this movie has Roman Griffith Davies in it, who's awesome, a breakthrough performance. Archie Yates is fantastic. We have Scarlett Johansson doing something completely different. Taika Waititi is, dressed up as Hitler, and like the most audacious thing I've ever seen, but it works really, really well. And then Sam Rockwell, Alfie Allen. This movie just, for what its material is doing and the way it's able to balance everything, it just makes it one of the great best films of the year. And there's a reason why I enjoyed it so much. I walked in, I walked out, I was anticipating it, and it, exceeded all expectations. So Jojo Rabbit, definitely high on my list at top number 9. So anyways, we'll go ahead and head into number 8, which is... So this is a movie I can imagine is probably not on a lot of people's list as top 10 of the year. Gaspar Noé's Climax is a film that kind of completely just came out of nowhere with a movie that just completely surprised me. This movie's not easy. It's uncomfortable. It's brutal. It's dark. It deals with people getting laced with LSD. But the camera movements, the way you follow these people, the things that are happening in this movie, it becomes an exercise in just complete, well-known, diverse filmmaking, and the way we see shots of just the characters just kind of dancing for 10 minutes. Gaspar Noé is not known for his easy filmmaking, but when this movie goes from its like slow pace to its completely out of control pace in the climax, it was something truly special. And it's why I like theater movies and cinema so much, is because of films like this. So definitely check it out. Like I said, it's very hard to watch, but it's something I definitely recommend if you're willing to, experience it. So, but at number 7, we have... So Mike Finnegan has proved once again that he's one of the best horror directors on the market. He directed Doctor Sleep, which is with Ewan McGregor as Danny Torrance, the adult version. This movie I was anticipating. I was really looking forward to it because I love the book and I like Mike Finnegan a lot. I liked how this cast was set up, but what surprised me is how good Rebecca Ferguson is as the villain as Rose the Hat. She is on another level of anybody in this movie, and it's the reason why Rebecca Ferguson is just an amazing actress. And I said in my review, she's in a sequence with Kaylee Curran, who plays Abra, that is literally one of my favorite sequences of the decade. It's so well shot and just kind of inventive that I love it for it. And it's a sequel to The Shining, which I wasn't a huge fan of the Stanley Kubrick version, but I respect it. And this movie's awesome. So at number 7 is definitely Doctor Sleep. Check it out if you haven't seen it. So at number 6 we have. So this is a movie that came out in 2018. I didn't get to see it until 2019. People question why I put this on my list of 2019. It's because of that reason. If Beale Street Could Talk is a movie that came out in January for me, the movie just completely blew me away. It's fantastic. I think it's Barry Jenkins' best film, and it has a great performance by Regina King. But something I didn't mention in the original review that I did for this movie is there's a sequence, kind of like in Doctor Sleep, where Brian Tyree Henry explains about his life in prison, and it's one of the most brutally honest, crazy things I've ever seen in film. He should have gotten an Oscar nomination for that particular scene because he's so raw, he's so emotional, but he's so good at telling his story that you just kind of become enveloped and engrossed in it. And it's just a brutally honest, scene, and you're just watching the characters, sit there and listen. And on top of that, it's a story about somebody who's wrongfully and convicted of something and the love that, people share. And it comes to a brutally sad climax. But if you haven't seen If Beale Street Could Talk, it has also an amazing score, which I don't even know if I talked about that because it's been so long. But just check it out. It's definitely worth watching. So, but that's at number 6. So number 5 is. So Lulu Wang's The Farewell was a movie that I have been looking forward to based off the trailer I had seen. It came out of nowhere for me, and it's a fantastic movie. This, of course, is a very true story about Lulu Wang basically not being able to tell her grandmother because of the culture that she lives in, that she has a terminal cancer or terminal disease or whatever it is. And Shuzhen Zhao and Awkwafina are the standouts of this movie. Like I said, Shuzhen Zhao should get an Oscar nomination as the grandmother because she's so good in the role. And Awkwafina, who is usually like outlandish and crazy, is very toned down, and her performance is fantastic. But if you haven't seen The Farewell, definitely give it a watch. It will touch your soul and touch your heart. And it's just a fantastic movie. So yeah, at number 5, we have The Farewell. And number 4, we have. So this is a film I wish was on everybody's top 10. The Last Black Man in San Francisco, which is directed by Joe Talbot and written by Jimmy Fails, who's one of the actors in this movie, and Joe Talbot, is kind of showing what San Francisco has turned into compared to what it used to be. We're given a different side of San Francisco that we never really see in movies, which I talked about in my review. And it's just a beautiful movie. It's a movie that completely took me by surprise at how good it was. And Jonathan Majors, who is kind of like a poet in this movie, and he's been in other stuff before. It's a breakthrough performance for him. And this movie it's raw, it's emotional, and it shows a person that's really not willing to accept the fact of what's happening to San Francisco or what's happened to San Francisco. And I just like the fact that we get to see things that we don't usually see. And on top of that, this movie it's an amazingly written movie. It's a fantastic movie. It was number 1 on my top 10 list for a while until some other movies came out. But please see Last Black Man in San Francisco because it is definitely not a waste of your time. So there you go. Number 3, we have. So we have The Irishman. Irishman, of course, Martin Scorsese's mega long opus. This movie once again brings back Robert De Niro and thank God Joe Pesci into the fold of a Martin Scorsese movie, and it gives us Al Pacino too, which is really cool. This movie is great. It's fantastic. It's brutal. It's violent. It's a Martin Scorsese movie, but it's a Martin Scorsese movie at its finest. And yes, it's long, but it's deliberately long on purpose, and it gives us character exposition. It gives us moments. It gives us, quietness, and just gives us the life of this character, the Irishman himself, played by Robert De Niro. And it's fantastic. Joe Pesci is going to get an Oscar nomination for this role. I hope, Al Pacino or maybe Robert De Niro does as well. But once again, with Thelma Shoemaker, it shows that Martin Scorsese is just, he's in command of every movie he ever does, and he's allowed to do these movies now because he has such a eclectic career. So, but at number 3, we have The Irishman. So we'll head to number 2, which is... I didn't realize Trey Edward Schultz directed It Comes at Night. That I didn't care for at all, which was surprising. Waves, on the other hand, broke me in pieces. This movie is brutal. This movie is honest. This movie is insane. And it takes place in Miami, where I currently live, like I said. Taylor Russell, who plays like the main girl in this movie, dealing with the situation at hand, she's fantastic. I wish she would get an Oscar nomination. I hope Sterling K. Brown gets an Oscar nomination. I hope this movie just gets all the accolades outside of another movie I'm going to talk about in a second. This movie is rough and it's hard, and I cried several times, but this movie it's cathartic. It's amazing. And like Marriage Story, it has hope at the end of this movie. But man, it is a journey that you have to be prepared for, and you have to bring tissues, and you have to understand that this movie is not easy. And there's a reason why it's called Waves and the ripple effects of our life. So yeah, number 2 is Waves. It's pretty crazy. So with that, you guys should know what my number 1 film is if you watch my review for it. But number 1, we have... So in 2018, I talked about how Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was my favorite film of the year just because of how revolutionary it was for animation. There always seems to be one film every year that kind of does that, where it just kind of changes the genre, or at least once every decade that kind of does that. With 1917 and what Sam Mendes and Roger Deakins did with the one-shot, genre, this movie is revolutionary in what it's doing. Yeah, it's not original because it's about saving people's lives, but for a war movie, for the tense nature of what Sam Mendes was doing, for how it's shot with being up and close with these guys, they never know what's around the corner. You don't know what's around the corner. You never leave their side. It's an incredible piece of work, an incredible piece of cinema. It is going to be with me for the rest of my life with how good it really is. And then you got Thomas Newman's incredible score. You got Jordan McKay's incredible performance. You got all these famous actors in this movie that are not really in it that much, and it just becomes a wholly unique cinema experience. And it's such a shame that this movie is not coming out till January 10th for most people, because it needs to be seen. It needs to be experienced. Go see it at the biggest theater you can, because like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, this movie completely changes how cinema really is. And I can't wait to see what other people do with this technology. Alfonso Cuarón kind of like jump-started this one shot, even though, other movies have done this. But Alfonso Cuarón kind of really brought it into the mainstay. But Sam Mendes, like with what he's done before, Road to Perdition or, Skyfall or something like that. I mean, what can you say? It's an incredible film. Definitely is my top, film of the year. And if you watch my, best of the decade, it's in my best of the decade as well. But 1917 is insane and it's incredible. So there you go. At number 1, 1917. So there you go, guys. That is my top 10 with a few honorable mentions. I know a lot of people probably won't agree with, the list. Avengers Endgame is a little high on a lot of people's list, which is cool. Joker's not in there. Parasite's not in there. It's just the way it works out. It's the way the year works out. There's some films that I love to death, but they just didn't make it. So anyways, let me know in the comments below what your top 10 is. I'd be really interested to know. Also, link if you do have a top 10 video, I'd be interested to watch it because I do like top 10 videos. Also, hit the subscribe button, join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell up top to find out what's coming next, and of course, comment below on any video that you watch my channel. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. What's up, guys? Thank you so much for checking out Movie Emporium. I really appreciate it. If you want to, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification button and the bell at the top. find out what's coming next for Movie Emporium. Also, check out these 2 videos. They're amazing. I think they're awesome. I think you'll enjoy them too. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.